Please tell me about reentry.
Reentry. It's a word that probably the better word is reintegration, but we haven't kind of converted people into thinking that way. Reentry, as it's commonly used and the way I'm working with it now, is people who are formerly incarcerated, who are coming back into their communities, where they need to be able to be reintegrated into the community in a way that keeps them from going back into incarceration, whether it's county or state or federal.
That's something that we're not very successful at in this country. We have a very high recidivism rate.
So there are wonderful pockets of success all over the country. I happen to live in a state that's not been successful, and I live in a county that's not been successful in keeping that recidivism rate down.
Why is he successful and we're not here?
You'll find programs like that all over Los Angeles County and all over California. What you won't find is a system at either the state level or the county level that supports or links those programs together. What you'll find is public policy for years and years and years that was focused on building more prisons, to the point where the federal government stepped in and said you can't continue to put people in the prisons and in the medical facilities in our state because you are violating their rights. It's cruel and unusual punishment. And the state finally responded to that under court order.
But they just let people out. That doesn't do any good.
No, they're not just letting people out. They're beginning to look at the nature of the violation instead of saying, let's just lock people up and throw the keys away. They're beginning to look at and say, there's a series of felonies that have put people in prison that are non-violent, non-serious, and non-sexual predators. They're not sexual predators, they're not violent. So most of these are drug. Most of these are drug sales or possession or use. And how those have been applied to people basically has to do with race, community, homeless or housed status of who actually goes to jail over the years, if you look at the statistics. And so what they're saying is that in order to reduce, one side is saying, in order to reduce the prison population, in California 900 people come in every day, 900 people come out. You can reduce it by stopping the flow in. And so if you don't send non-violent, non-sexual predators, non-serious offenders to state prison,
drug court is
that's one way, or you put them in county jail, then but it's cheaper and it's more effective to incarcerate people in county prisons or jails for a couple reasons. One is it's less expensive. And secondly, they are close to their community, and that's really the most important thing.
What I wonder is, does it decrease the recidivism rate?
Yes, it decreases the recidivism rate. Study after study after study have shown that the rehabilitation of people who are exposed to their communities, who are not out of their communities because they're at Pelican Bay or some other place.
Corcoran.
For women, it's Chowchilla, the middle of the state. There are programs like Get on the Bus where they can at least see their kids once a year. Women rehabilitate a whole lot faster with exposure to their children. And where are our prisons? And where do we put people?
In the middle of the San Joaquin Valley.
Got it.
What is Zonta International?
Zonta International is an organization of business and professional women all over the world who come together to do community service and advocacy on behalf of women. And we are in, I don't even know how many countries, 160 countries, about 40,000 members worldwide. And the programs that we do are both clubs at the community level. In my community, we have an organization, a club of about 75 or 80 members. And then we also work to do service projects around the world in partnership with the United Nations and with some of the other international organizations. A couple examples of local ones. One is that we found out that the court here has no support system for domestic violence victims. And so a person, usually a male, has an attorney, has somebody with him to represent him in court. The victim doesn't have anybody representing her. If she does, it's from the DA's office, and they are so overworked they don't have time to give a woman like that the emotional support. And so we've put into place in our court system here an advocacy program working in partnership with the Domestic Violence Center, where we have trained volunteers who are in court who will work with that victim, who might even drive that victim to a neighboring court, let's say in San Fernando or Van Nuys if the case is not here, and be the advocate for that person and give her the emotional support. Another project that we have done over the years is a program called Life Forward, and it's for women who have not had the opportunity to go to school or are uncomfortable, let's say, going to the community college, who want a safe environment where they can learn things like financial skills. How do you budget? How do you plan for savings? How do you get your credit back if you've lost your credit either through divorce or something else? How do you do a resume? How do you do a job search? How do you go on an interview? What kind of attire should you be wearing to a job interview? Those kinds of life skills. And so we do those once a month for women in the community who don't have the courage to go to the community college
because they're traumatized.
Courage. They're traumatized, or they've had no experience in a university or a college and they are scared to go to the campus. So we help give them the confidence and do kind of a mentor program of doing those kinds of workshops. So those are two of the local ones.
Please give us an example of the international efforts that you support.
The international projects are determined every 2 years when the new international president comes into office and presents to a body of the membership these programs, and then they're voted on. And they're projects that we think can be self-sustaining if they get the seed money to start. One that came along about probably 15 years ago that I always use as an example because it's just so thrilling to me was in Sri Lanka. And the women there had to walk miles to get fresh water. And they didn't have the funding to dig and dig wells. And so the funding went to dig wells and to teach the skills of digging wells to the different villages, and so women didn't have to walk to the river anymore. So that's one. If you take some of the violence against women in India, that's a program that's been going on for a number of Zanta cycles for a number of years, working with educating people about violence against women. There's a school in Afghanistan for women. When the Taliban cut off education to women, Zanta came in and opened a school there.
And the Taliban allowed that?
Yes. It's still going.
Great. Oh, that's good.
Obviously, it was put in an area that could be defended, and the families obviously supported it enough to keep it going. But those are the kinds of international projects where there is a need, and where Zanta can put in the seed money and then help it become self-sustaining when we move on to the next project.